welcome to OMG MotoGP. Glad you could drop in and join us. And I'm joined by Michael Laverty, a man that really counts every single second of his life and makes use of every single second of his life. Michael, thanks for joining us. I mean, I've got to say that I'm impressed you've been able to give us this amount of time. Your life is literally a whirlwind. How do you do it?
I question that sometimes myself lately. It has been a little busy over the last month or so. When I started the team in 2022, I just went around the clock and didn't really have much time for myself. And then I've got a little boy now and a wife at home, so I do try and give them as much time as possible, but trying to run the team and, well, run 3 teams. We've got a team in GP and Junior GP and then British Championship. So you're always trying to stay across everything, whether it's working on sponsors or the actual logistics of running the team, the paying of the bills and dealing with invoices. And I still do a lot. I'm hands-on with everything. So yeah, time is at a premium. I think now once I get through the first rounds of each series and everything's on the ground and it's running and operating, I do get a bit of my life back. So it is, full gas right now.
Full gas indeed. Could you have had any inkling at all? I mean, when Petronas Moto3 team wound itself up and disappeared, and you were given an opportunity through Dorna and Urta to take over a team, to take over those slots. I mean, could you have envisaged the amount of work that you have had to take on?
Honestly, if I had have, I probably wouldn't have done it. It has been. Once you're in it, it's okay. But it's been a mammoth task because we're a team from the UK, supporting riders from the UK and Ireland. The sponsorship opportunities aren't vast. It is difficult. So the financing is one side, and that's a job in itself, trying to find the sponsors. The managing the people is another side. Then the travel, the logistics, the bills, the accounting side of it, the ordering the parts, the pleasing riders and riders' dads and managers, and it just seems like you're always on something. There's always someone needs a piece of you. So I always thought as a rider it was busy or it was stressful, but give me back the rider days when all you had to worry about was eating well, training, sleeping well, and getting up the next day and just being the best you can be. Whereas now I just feel like I get through some of the nights with a beer or a bottle of gin to work to 2 a.m. because I literally get my little boy to bed at 8 p.m. because once he gets back from nursery, I want to spend time with him. But then I still need to get my day's work done, so I work to 2 a.m. is my cutoff time, and then I'll go to bed, and then he'll wake us up again at 8 a.m. So the ability to still function on 6 hours sleep is one problem because I always like to sleep. But yeah, the workload is much bigger than I ever planned. So I'm fine with it. I can manage it, but it is stressful at times.
It's something that as broadcasters, I mean, being an older broadcaster, without doing myself down too much here, we've always big upped the team behind a rider. Riders' lives, as you've just alluded to, is quite a bit easier, really. I mean, you're fairly well mollycoddled. Your flights are sorted, your hire cars are sorted, your pay's sorted, you're flying business or first class. You don't really have to think about anything except the racing, which is something that all of us have really enjoyed in the past. But we've always gone big on the management, hospitality units, so many people that are working so hard behind the scenes. And now with something like 42 races, 21 different venues over the course of the year, that is a massive workload for the teams behind the riders, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously the riders have the extra stresses when they're the man in the arena when the lights come on Sunday night in Qatar. They're the one that is
what would you prefer?
Perform. I'd rather be the man in the arena. Now, looking back with hindsight being 2020, it is it's a nice place to be because you're doing something you love. So you get the adrenaline, the buzz, the adrenaline and the buzz is brilliant when you're winning or having success. When you're struggling at the back, it's a bit tougher. But overall, it's a beautiful sport to be part of, especially as a racer. I do feel now for the mechanics who are having to travel and set up on a Wednesday, because it's a traveling circus, you never go back to the workshop. So truck left the workshop a few weeks ago to head to Portimao for the first test. Then it went to the Jerez test. Then you ship everything from Jerez to Qatar. Then it comes back from Qatar to Portimao. You move your truck there. So it's that ongoing circus. You never get time to go back to the workshops and work on the bikes. You literally go to the event 2 days early. So the mechanics fly on a Tuesday to get to Portimao, they'll work all day Wednesday, setting up the pit box, setting up everything. They'll prep the bikes, strip them, nut and bolt check them, clean everything, and rebuild them over Wednesday, Thursday. Then they'll have the stresses of the race weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I was in Qatar at the track at midnight on Friday night, and the Moto3 session had finished quite early, but the boys are still there grafting away, getting everything exactly how they want. So their weeks are a lot longer than ours in television. We get to fly home on a Sunday night and then come back on a Thursday afternoon, whereas the mechanics have got an extra 3 days pretty much. So whether it's working at the track or even their travel being delayed. So yeah, there's going to be a fallout in terms of the older generation who are struggling with the travel, the extra events, and the time away from home. So some people are already thinking about retiring from the game, which is a shame, but it is the way the sport is going now. The 42 races on the MotoGP riders and technicians is tough.
You kind of see that, though, through the years, don't you? I mean, I look in the paddock still now, and there are people in the paddock that were in the paddock when I was there. And I'm not talking about the recent past. I'm talking about the dim and distant past when I was there. And it's kind of one of those things where it is remarkable, the guys that stay in and that's a real big knowledge base as well. But I'm wondering whether that knowledge is as important nowadays as it used to be, that kind of analog knowledge, if you like, whereas we're living in a much more digital, electronic data kind of an arena now, which for me is a younger person's domain.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. When you look, the old engineers of the past, your Irv Kanemotos, or people who were leading the team, they were hands-on, they were actual tuners. You don't really need a tuner anymore. If you look at the MotoGP, it is, you need good mechanics, good fitters that are fitting the factory parts to the bike. All the development comes on the electronic side, so it is it's a data center. It is a base of computers in the back of the truck. At the track, it is all the work that's done away. It'll all be on servers. It'll all get crunched through the numbers through the AI machine. There is a little bit of that coming into play at MotoGP right now. So the game is changing a little bit, and it is a shame to lose the old engineers and their knowledge and their know-how. It does still, it pays off if you've got that on your side as well. I think Gigi Dall'Igna still uses old knowledge from his 125 and 250 Aprilia tuning days. So that analog knowledge it's still got a huge value and it doesn't go away, but definitely it is leaning more towards the younger engineer, the computer genius.
Gigi, for me, at the weekend, I mean, I shouldn't make these kind of comments, I know, because it's not done in today's age, but the point, but he looked tired. He looked older, Gigi, at the weekend. Normally he's like the wizard and he's there in the corner, but I mean, the stress involved in all classes, Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP, there are different stresses in each class, and I want to go there in a minute with your particular team, but I mean, the toll is quite heavy on these guys. Can you actually see them splitting responsibilities during the course of the year where we roll over different personnel? Are we trying to run too much of a stressful situation on too few people?
It is a possibility, like Formula One do with a lot of their staff. They are split over half a season each, so it does have the workload essentially. But then your people at the helm, like Gigi, he's never going to remove himself from the arena. He's going to want to be there and pull the strings. And as I understand it, I wouldn't say he's a control freak, but he does like to have a finger on everything. So he's had
control freak.
Yeah, maybe that is the word. But he's had his key engineers with him, and he's lost a few over the recent years. Max Bartolini defecting to Yamaha didn't go down too well. You always see he's got Ricardo Sabin, who's been with him right from the very beginning, and he's there as his number two in terms of the chassis dynamics, in terms of electronics. He does delegate a little bit, but as I understand it, within that pit box now, he's almost in control of everything, even the management side, the rider contracts, the staff who they engage in, everything gets passed through Gigi and gets signed off before any commitments are made. So he's very much the puppet master. He's a great engineer. He seems to be quite a good man manager in terms of how he handles everything. But yeah, it can get a little bit too much. But I did learn a little while ago that he even has a driver, make sure that he doesn't have to drive himself to the airport, because those 2-3 hours in the car, he needs to be answering the phone, he needs to be on call, he needs to be available, whether it's emails coming in, he has to respond, because it's a huge he's across World Superbike, he's across Ducati in terms of they're moving into the motocross arena. They've developed the MotoE project, and they're winning everything, whether it's the AMA Daytona 200 last weekend. They're a successful manufacturer right now because of key people like Gigi Dall'Igna in there and because of their passion to drag it on and keep moving forward.
Sounds like Gigi Dall'Igna is a management model that you've taken on when it comes to having to run things in your Moto3 team. And I want to get back to that if I can now. I mean, obviously Gigi's got massive budget. He's in a world championship winning team, manufacturing winning team, sponsorship comes his way. Personnel, glad to hear you say what you said about him managing personnel, because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, to keep the good people. I remember when KTM came to the paddock, all of a sudden the stock value of anybody that was any good in the paddock went up, because KTM came in and sucked everybody out of Honda and everybody that was any good from everywhere. The reason for mentioning that is then you get to the point where Moto3, Moto2, great teams, lower funding, harder to attract the top people to come and operate within your team to make your team move forward.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. When you're a support class to the main show, which is MotoGP, so Moto2 and Moto3, the teams are smaller. They're typically fighting for, Erda and Dorna, in fairness, do help a lot. And you think before I joined the paddock, but during COVID times when it was a struggle and obviously sponsors weren't paying, they helped prop the teams up to make sure none fell to the wayside. So they have a good business model. It does provide us with almost like a start package. So as you turn up to every race, you get assistance in terms of your logistics and travel, and the package they put together is very good. But you still need to raise a lot of money to pay all the salaries, to get everyone around the world, to have all the latest parts. And believe me, the parts from Honda aren't cheap, even from Moto3. So we have a huge parts bill right now because the 2024 model is different from Honda, so everything changes. So you're buying all new. It adds a pinch. And yeah, speak to even successful Moto2 teams, and they all feel the same. You look at the speed up team, Bosco-Oscuro, they're winning races at the weekend with Alonso Lopez, but they change their livery 4 times a year because they can't attract that one big title sponsor, but they can get 4 interested parties at a lower level. So you think of that, the workload involved for Luca Bosco-Oscuro himself. He's developing a chassis in terms of the Bosco-Oscuro engineering side. He's running a speed up team. He's dealing with 4 big sponsors, and all those sponsors require the same time, the same face time, the same amount of passes, which we only have a certain allocation to work with. And you got to treat each one of those as a title sponsor. So whether you've got 20 small sponsors or one big one, the one big one's always the easy. It's the same amount of people. That company may have 10 board members and 5 of those are interested and they want to come. So 5 of those have a premium season pass, and then the number of guests gets multiplied for each sponsor you have. So managing that, dealing with that, but getting them through the door is the hard bit, to be honest. You cold call and cold email and doesn't quite work. You need you need someone who's interested in the sport. I was fortunate with that. When I met Simon Marsh from Vision Track, passionate about the sport, that opened up the doors. Whereas most companies in the UK, they're not that interested in MotoGP, and less so in the support classes in MotoGP. So really quite hard, and we are trying to create the ladder all the way through for from the youth system to prepare the next generation of British riders to fix the void that is there since Cal Crutchlow has stopped as a full-time MotoGP rider, not having a British rider in the pinnacle class. So what we're doing is trying to help in that arena, but getting the funding to do so is far from easy.
Well, you mentioned Vision Track. Of course, Vision Track have been a benefactor for quite a while with you and various other teams in British Championships as well over here in the UK, for those of you listening from afar. But Vision Track pulled out this year. That must have, and it seemed to me, I mean, shut me up if I'm wrong, but seemed to me that was quite a late call. That must have been a real worry for you at the time.
Yeah, it's made life difficult. I'm very grateful for the support we got over the first, for 3 seasons, but for 2 seasons in GP. I was sort of aware it was possibly on the horizon late last year, and then whenever we were aware that there was no support coming, then we worked hard over the winter and did try and find replacements. It hasn't been possible, so right now we are MLab racing. Hopefully that's temporary. We will find a new sponsor to place on there. The main area of the bike is empty. I have a few interested parties of coming in for one event sponsorship, maybe just to like the model that Aspar do and Bosco Oscuro do, and Lucio Cecchinello's done so well over the years, where you do change your livery. So that may be the way we go. I'm also in talks with some potential interested parties to take over the title sponsorship. But yeah, it has been tough, and it dawns a huge reality that if there's no sponsorship money coming in, where does it come from? And it comes from my pocket. And I took on a business partner just over a year ago. So I sold a share of the team to Mr. David Eltherington, who owns one of our previous sponsors. Bulk Tainer Logistics is his company now. He's part owner of the team, and he's helped a lot in terms of the business side and financially taking all the risk off my end. So yeah, it's been a great addition to the team, and I'm so thankful for his support. But we still, together, we have to try and drum up sponsorship interest and other various parties to bring them to the team. We have expanded this year. We've invested a lot over the winter. We bought a brand new race trailer from Hopkins Motorsport in the UK, so we wanted to increase our presence as well. So we lost our title sponsor, and I remember at the end of the year, Gunther Wiesinger had got the rumor, and he was going to write an article that our team was folding because we'd lost Vision Track, and that Leopard were going to take over our team. And I was actually in discussions with Leopard to become a satellite team, and it would have been good for us to elevate our status. And honestly, I think the article that Gunther wrote put the tin hat on it, because Leopard are so secretive, and they thought I had gone and spoke to the press, and it did damage that, and it never happened, and it's frustrating. But at the same time, we didn't want that image that there was even any risk over the team. And we've bought a new hospitality unit, we've bought a brand new race trailer, we've bought a new race truck for Junior GP, and we have one of the most impressive setups in the Junior GP paddock as well as we grow there. So we're investing a lot of personal money to raise the team overall, to become a bigger presence, to do it better overall. We haven't cut any corners. We've actually raised the salaries of a lot of the staff. So we're not taking any shortcuts by any means. We're rewarding the people that deserve to be rewarded. We're working hard to generate the interest on sponsorship side, and we'll be fine. But it is slightly tough times out there at the moment in terms of the global market. Never mind when you're a British team with 2 British riders. I had easier options. I had some interested parties from Asia, even from France, and it would have fixed a lot of our financial woes after losing Vision Track. But I got a telling off by Mike Trimby the lunchtime before he passed away in Misano, because we had to put on our list of potential candidates for 2024, and basically there wasn't too many there are no other British riders. It was only Scott or Josh, but I named a load of other riders, and yeah, he was like, we want you to be promoting the UK route. So yeah, it was a little bit of a slap from the headmaster, and it was that lunchtime at Misano, and then I couldn't believe the news that evening. So obviously, in terms of Mike, was instrumental in us getting the team together and off the ground, and the support that Dorna put behind us in year one Mike was instrumental in making that happen. So in his honour, we will continue that path. Well, that's always the plan anyway, but it's a nice little tip of the hat to Mike, and that's his whole goal in everything we started together, that we will have a British rider at MotoGP in the future.
Mike Trimby, most of us have had a helping hand from Mike at some stage or the other, and a slap every now and again. Sounds like you got one for that. I mean, Mike's parting and the changes that are going on at Dorna, and the rumoured sale of Dorna, which has been going on for years, by the way. That's not a new thing. We've all been listening to some of Dorna are being sold and so on, but seems to be getting closer nowadays as MotoGP has risen through the promotable ranks. I mean, Mike's demise, does that hurt the likes of your team and any other British teams that are involved in any way, in as much as that he was a voice, wasn't he, on the top table for British teams?
Yeah, so far I haven't noticed that it may have an impact down the line. Obviously, there's a lot of well-experienced staff inside Erda that have stepped up. So Mike done so much that they almost shared the duties amongst 3 or 4 people. So Jeff Dixon has stepped up alongside Danny Aldridge. Really, those 2 are taking the majority of the tasks that Mike previously would have handled by himself. But it is the worry that Mike would have fought our corner when it comes to conversations with Dorna, with the FIM, with the MSMA, with whoever it is. You never knew the politics that went on behind the scenes that might put out fires or fought corners of teams. So yeah, it may have an impact. I do, obviously, Erda are a predominantly UK company in terms of all the staff. There are other nationalities in there, but they're mainly all from the UK. So it's a very welcoming environment for a British team to come in there. So I do think they will have our interests at heart. I don't think we get any favoritism as such, but yeah, you never quite know. Carlos Espeleta worked quite closely with Mike. So most of my meetings initially were with Carlos and Mike together. So I think Carlos has got a very level head and a very good understanding of the politics of it all. So I'm hoping that it shouldn't affect us in the future. But yeah, you never know. Mike had a lot of power and a lot of sway and a lot of experience, so it could affect us.
Talking about sway, we seem to be swaying towards the Americans a bit more. We've got Dan Rossamondo, who's now the Chief Commercial Officer, that's come in from the NBA, that Dorna have hired him to come and make a few moves if he can. There's Trackhouse Racing, Justin Marks, NASCAR team owner, has now taken over the old RNF team and looks brilliant, looks really good. Justin was on site at Qatar. We've got you guys. TNT, of course, you work for a television company. I haven't even touched on that yet. That's another string to your bow. And I remember when you were reluctant to do that, when you were still a rider. But the point I'm making is that there seems to be a distinct swing towards the American market, which is something there's been a massive hole in MotoGP for so long. We're not big in America.
And it's a huge market. It has, if you break through the American market, it has an impact in Asia and Australia. Globally, they are the superpower when it comes to the media side. So if we do manage to break through, obviously our feed will go out to the American audience this year. So it's nice from the TNT pundits' perspective. We have a much bigger audience that we're speaking to than previous. The Trackhouse team, the American Racing Squad remain in Moto2. John Hopkins and Ethan Buchbull are trying to put together an academy program through the Moto America series, through the Valley Championship, and bring on their next generation as well. I think Trackhouse are well funded. They're well financed. They've got a lot of big entrepreneurs behind the whole project. There's rumors of the new circuit in America for a second venue on the GP calendar. I do think the Netflix effect was quite American driven in the whole storyline, and with the Formula One, obviously Liberty Media being the main drivers behind that, and the rumors that Liberty Media are interested in purchasing the stake in Dorna. It all sort of ties together nicely. I think Trackhouse are known as disruptors of doing things differently in NASCAR, and you could see already there's some signs of that in how they go about their business. They make it look quite really smart from the outside. They've done a fantastic job as newcomers to the paddock. So I think it can only be good for the sport. I think it needs to gain traction in the US. Obviously, you look back at the 500 era when you'd Wayne Rainey, Kevin Schwantz, Eddie Lawson. It was all big American names. Then after that, you'd Nicky Hayden, Colin Edwards, John Hopkins, a lot of big names in MotoGP from America. And now, like the UK, they don't have a presence. They've got the Moto2 riders and Joe Roberts, and it's not quite happening for them. So they're a massive market in terms of the audience, but also they need the riders in there. It's like France, absolutely. The numbers catapulted once Fabio Quartararo became a winner. It is the same in Holland when you look at Formula One. It's a massive sport now because Max Verstappen is a successful champion. And I think the same has to happen for America as it has to from the UK. You need a rider in there, someone to get behind.
So the American influence, Michael, I mean, with the way things are swinging towards America at the moment, and your profile from a television personality, as well as the respect that everyone has for you as an ex-rider and now a team manager as well, surely that must put you in a good place for picking up any kind of sponsorship. I mean, do you know Justin Marks? Have you spoken to Justin Marks? I mean, the NASCAR market is big. The IndyCar market is big over there. I mean, sponsorship is quite big over there. Can you see some of that drifting your way?
I really do hope so. It is possible. Obviously, when things begin to grow in various nations, when you look at the move to Indonesia, the fact that we've got a GP in India, it is opening up conversations, and I notice it on my LinkedIn, which is the obviously the business social media channel, there are more connections there to be had. And I hope that the same happens with America. Obviously, we're still visiting Texas. We hope that the whole trackside influence and the potential of a second MotoGP in America and the potential to grow the audience over there. I do think Dorna have been quite Latin in terms of their direction, very Spanish, very Italian. I think the move to having an American influence will be good in terms of how the whole program evolves. So, yeah, fingers crossed it will go a little bit more Americanized, that we will get a little bit of support from that side.
That, of course, though, causes another conundrum. At the moment, you're under the cosh from the Mike Trimby legacy and making sure you look after young English riders, British riders, Scott Ogden, Josh Watley. They've, particularly in Scott's case, he's done a great job. He's shown real potential at some points. It hasn't really come to the kind of fruition that we would have expected. Josh Watley's had a lot on his shoulders, but he's a much better motorbike rider than I think the old trolls give him credit for. And you've stuck with them both, to your credit, I must say, or Mike Trimby's, depending on how much you were forced, to stay with those two guys and give them a proper opportunity over a proper period of time. But will that change, perhaps, as the marketplace changes? Will you end up with an Asia-Pacific rider, an American rider? How will that pan out, do you think?
Honestly, it is very possible, and I have had this conversation with Carlos Espeleta already. I've said I find that it will be challenging to maintain a two-rider British team throughout, even in terms of the numbers of the riders that are coming through. We will have maybe one. Eddie O'Shea should be the next candidate. He's riding for us in Junior GP. He's old enough. He turns 18 next year that he could step up. But after that, then you've got Casey O'Gorman will probably be the next one. Then Johnny Garness, Evan Belford. There are a few, but not the huge numbers of upcoming riders that you had from Spain, as an example. So I think the chances are we would keep one rider from the UK and then probably diversify a little bit, whether it is an Asian Pacific rider or American rider, or had some good meetings at the weekend with on the Qatari side, because they don't have any youth system, any academy development. They typically have riders in their 20s, so they're looking down the line how they could get a Qatari ready, so they could run a program in parallel with us that has a young rider ready at 18. So yeah, I think we will, in terms of the market, it does dictate a little bit your direction. As much as I would love to say it will always be a team for the riders from the UK and Ireland, all the way from British Championship, Junior GP and into GP, I think the financial realities will mean that we have to look at other audiences and other paths and other riders. So obviously we'll fight our corner as long as we can to try and keep it solely for a British development path, but that's no guarantee by any means.
The increase in minimum age has actually done countries around the world a favour, because unfortunately what's happened is been driven south, hasn't it? We've got so many youngsters, real youngsters, that are capable of getting in through the Junior World Championships into Moto3 first of all. The point is at 18 years old, it brings the Qataris, the British to a great extent. We're late developers when it comes to the age of our top-line motorcycle racers. So do you see the 18-year-old minimum age a favour? Is that doing you a favour as a team owner?
It will in due course, but right now it's actually strangely hurt us, because we had some young riders who'd gone through the Spanish system, gone really early and done the same years of prep as their Italian and Spanish rivals. So obviously that's in some ways that's left Scott and Josh fortunate, because they're in their third year with us. They didn't have someone knocking at the door last year ready to steal their seat. There was no one old enough. So Eddie O'Shea will be that person this year, knocking on the door going, if I'm performing well. And Eddie tested for us at Valencia at the end of the last season, was really fast straight away. He was finished 15th as a first time with our team and our bike. So having someone there ready to pinch your seat motivates you as a rider. So it'll maybe get a little bit more out of Scott and Josh this year, knowing that they no longer have the luxury of not having another young rider from the UK coming. So we had Eddie, we have Casey O'Gorman, who's again too young still. He rode for us for a season or just under. I fell out with his dad, but he's now with the Monlau team, which is a fantastic development squad. So I really hope Casey has a successful season alongside Eddie in Junior Worlds this year. We've got Evan Belford in Junior Worlds. So if they start to step up, then we have the next crop coming through. But I think long term it's better because riders from the UK, riders from America, and other nationalities, it is the Spanish and Italian that are more ready when they're 17, 18. They're more mature. They've got more hours of racing against top class talent, and they're ready. They're professionals at 18, whereas it does take until we're mid 25. When you look at Jake Dixon's one of the elder guys in Moto2 this year, which is crazy to think, but he's still very young in terms of his development as a British rider. So I think it is good long term, but it's just been slightly frustrating as a team owner not to have that stream coming through of the next crop.
When you said you fell out with someone, I was sitting here just for a moment there thinking to myself, Michael Laverty falling out with someone. I could never quite imagine that. I mean, you're embedded, your family's embedded into the sport. I mean, Brother John is a physio, fitness, guru, if you like. Brother Eugene has just basically retired. One of the fastest men never to achieve what I expected him to achieve, by the way, Eugene. I've got to say, I mean, I have massive respect for Eugene, and he's had some horrendous injuries on his way through, and some career choices that haven't quite worked for him as well. So but still a massive resource for you in the background. And then you've got his wife Pippa, who is the FIM women's representative, if you like, as well. So the Lavertys are all over this game. I mean, we talk about Gigi Dall'Igna having a bit of an unfair advantage when it comes to riders' money and team, but from a Moto3 perspective, I mean, you've got a lot of resource that you can pull on. And if I might just head towards the female side of things, if I may, because Pippa would be killing me if I didn't. The point is that pool is quite small. Do you see that increasing? Do you see another Anna Carrasco, she a former world champion? Do you see that happening down the road? Do you see the female game coming up to the boys' standard?
I honestly, I don't know if the female series is going to be a positive for them or a negative, because it can take them down a different path that they're no longer competing against. When you look at back with Maria Herrera, she was beating Fabio Quartararo in Junior GP at the time when they were coming through as teammates at the Monlau squad. So you have to compete against your peers, your rivals for a world championship in Moto3, Moto2, and MotoGP in the future are all they're going to be. They're going to be male, so to take females to only race against females, yes, it's good in one arena. It gives them their own possibility to grow a series and get their own sponsors and a different audience. But you still, if the female's going to be a world champion, they need to be in racing the main categories. So there's no doubt, I still think there's physical differences between male and female. There's no doubt in that. But the mental side of racing is probably one of the biggest things. So there's an argument to say a woman would be more emotionally mature or more able to handle all the stresses and deal with it. So I've no question that a woman could be, a female competitor could be a motorcycle world champion at the very highest level, as Anna Carrasco has proven in the World Supersport 300. But at the moment, we're not seeing, there's none that have popped up onto my radar in the last 12 months. So Maria Herrera is still very fast, as is Anna, but obviously they're going down different paths now. So who the next female is that could follow in their footsteps, I'm not quite sure. But we may see those when we see the women's series this year. So fingers crossed it does come to fruition.
Excluding the obvious one of Spain and maybe Italy as well, if I might, I mean, which countries are moving motorcycle racing, Grand Prix racing, towards Grand Prix racing the best? My thoughts are British Championship. For some years we've argued that World Supersport, World Superbike is the path that British Championship guys tend to head towards. That for me is as much about age as it is about talent. We are late in producing fast guys in this. You mentioned Jake Dixon earlier. He was a British Superbike rider, one of note, but of course quite late into the World Championships. Which other countries, which other regions are moving on?
At the moment, still the benchmark is the Junior GP series in Spain. The Italian Championship is quite superbike as well. When you look, the pinnacle race of the Italian CIB series is the superbike class, which Michele Pirro wins and battles with Savadori and the like. So they have a good Moto3 and pre-Moto3 series in Italy, but the riders that show talent do go and race Junior GP. They get their name on a Red Bull Rookies Cup seat. So it is still Asia. I think you look at the Asia Talent Cup, and it's probably the best funded youth program. So if you ride in the British Talent Cup, you have to pay for your own bike and run on costs. If you get a seat in Asia Talent Cup, fully paid for, you just turn up and ride. That was something Dorna did put together for 2 years for the British Championship, but that went away, and now it's a father dad and lad funded scenario. So yeah, Asia is definitely the one that is best funded. That comes from Honda, from Idemitsu, from Dorna, from various different parties to create the best real youth feeder program. The winner of the Asia Talent Cup then gets a guaranteed spot in Red Bull Rookies Cup. This year, South America is starting their own Talent Cup with the same Honda NSFs, and the Northern Talent Cup has left the KTM, which was a bit of a hybrid between a motocross bike, a cheaper sort of a KTM package, and they've also gone the Honda route. So there's definitely a clear direction that Dorna are moving with Honda, with all the federations, to try and get almost a unified program where you've got your Valley championships that then graduate onto the Talent Cup programs, then onto Red Bull Rookies. So you've got a 12 to 18-year-old, you've got a 6-year window, and trying to plan the same route from every nation, that every rider will be tested on the same platform. When they get their opportunities to go at Red Bull Rookies tryouts, they'll be on the same kit as the other nations are working on. So I do think it is getting a bit of a uniformity to it. It will work. That'll pay off. Again, it will boil down to money. So from the UK side, there's some talented riders, but some that don't have the funding to do it, and it costs about £30,000 to £35,000 for a year in British Talent Cup. So that's a lot of money for a young lad to raise to go and do it, to try and battle for that title. But the winner of that British Talent Cup series will get a free ride with us the year after in Junior GP. So Evan Belford won last year, British Talent Cup, and Dorna basically pay for his seat. They don't pay for it entirely. Me and David do pay for a chunk of it as well, but that rider will not have to pay for it, and they'll come and they'll ride. It may not always be Junior GP, but it may be European Talent Cup. But next season in our British Talent team, Evan Belford, as a winner of the British Talent Cup, has got a prize of a Red Bull Rookies ride for free and a free ride for us in Junior GP. So that is quite something. So that is a good step that entices people to go and spend. If it is, you could do it in the cheap for about 20 maybe, but to win it, you probably need to spend about 35,000 to include testing and everything. So you have to spend the money, but if your son is successful, then there is a prize at the end of it. So the UK we're getting assisted by Dorna to do this. We are creating this platform. America are trying to do something similar. Asia already have it fully funded. Australia don't have anything like that as things stand, and no one really pushing that side, so they're falling a little bit, but they do have riders coming through. They've got 3 riders in the Asia Talent Cup this year. They've got Joel Kelso in Moto 3, Senna Aegis coming into Moto 2. So despite not having someone really leading it from the Australian Federation, they're finding a way for their talented young dirt trackers to come through and find a way into the sport. So yeah, there's no clear one way fits all, and it is different from every nation at the moment as I see things. And I think we'll start to see the northern territories of Europe coming to the fore with this introduction of this Northern Talent Cup as well.
You've got a big family connection with Casey Stoner. I mean, you're obviously married to Jodie. Chaz has been a good friend of Casey's back in the day as well, family friend. In fact, I think he used to stay down where you are in Wales, didn't he, quite a lot back in the day as well. Are you surprised more headliners like Casey? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he has more of a hand in things, knowing Casey. He's a bit of a behind-the-scenes man, perhaps. But whereas Mick Doohan has kind of moved across to the cars with son Jack and hasn't really got so involved in the bikes, to my knowledge anyway, are you surprised that more people like Casey are not headliners in Australia, which is a market that is struggling really at the moment?
Yeah, I am. And actually, when I spoke to Casey about it, he's keen to do something, but obviously his priority is his family and life, living a good life at home, not traveling all the time. Does get itchy feet when he's at home too long. I think he does like to go and be about. He typically comes over every summer at some point to Europe. He used to, as you mentioned, stay here. When he was racing in MotoGP, he would always come and spend a few weeks with us in the summer and just play on bikes and go fishing and whatnot. But his priorities are correct. It is his family life. Financially, I don't think he's in any difficulties. He's well off there. He's done some good business in his career. So I think he has obviously has the knowledge and he has the desire to do something for Australia in the future. Has he been tapped up correctly? Possibly not. Would he go for it if the right proposal was there? I think Casey would get his teeth into something. But yeah, that market is relatively untapped whenever you think about the previous names and that aren't being put to use. Chris Vermeulen is another one. Obviously, Chris was working with us on the TV side for a few years. Chris is another untapped resource who knows the game well in Europe and how to get the next Aussie in there. But yeah, you don't see them using their superstars to full advantage, really.
I suppose it naturally moves us on to your family very close to home. Leo, obviously not yet riding a motorbike, but I won't think it will be far away before he's actually across one. I mean, how do you react to that as a dad? I'm lucky I had all girls. Having said that, maybe they should have got into it. There's an opportunity from a female racing perspective. But I mean, yeah, how do you see that progressing? Is it something you've discussed, thought about with Jodie, or what?
Yeah, we've already spoke about it, and Jodie's dead against it. She does not want Leo racing motorbikes. So obviously, if he wants to, I'll support him. I think it's going to be hard to keep him away from it. Where we live here on a kart track, so every Sunday, there's loads of kids here on little mini bikes, and he's going to be obviously exposed to that from a very young age. Even he's 2.5 now, but he does love bikes and sitting on them, and I do think he's going to want to. I'll try and put him in. I'll give him every opportunity he has. I met John Kaczynski a couple of years ago at Laguna Seca World Superbike, and he said he'd give his kid a buffet of options, and I like that. He was like, give him golf clubs, give him baseball bats, give him football boots, give him carts, give him everything. Let him try it all, and then see what direction he wants to go down. But I do think it's going to be difficult given my family and Jodie's family's history, and we are passionate about two wheels, about motorbikes. And Jodie herself raced. Chaz has a little girl and a little boy. I don't know. I haven't spoken to Chaz about it yet if he would be anti bikes, but we know it's a tough sport to put your family through. Obviously, having been through the ringer with watching Eugene having some horrendous accidents, and it's harder to watch your sibling than it is for you to be on there. When you're on there, you're in control of your destiny and you accept your fate. But when you have no control over a sibling, it's so tough. So I can't imagine what my mum and dad went through when me, John, and Eugene were all on track together. So yeah, I'd hope in some ways he possibly does go and decide to play football. My brother John, his little boy's mad keen on football and a really good footballer actually, and he's in the Northern Ireland Academy and stuff. So I do hope Leo finds another forte. But if he does decide to go motorbike racing, we've got the perfect platform. So we've got a track here for him to train on from he's 4 years old. We've got a race team for him ready to go whenever he's 10, and we can prepare him. But hopefully that's not the case.
Well, hopefully, if I'm still around, I'll be interviewing him at some later stage and wishing him well as well. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for being so candid over so many things. All of us on OMG MotoGP wish you the very best of luck during the 2024 season. Josh Watley, Scott Ogden, safe and fast, hopefully through the year. To you, your family, who have always been so kind to everyone, and I think that on behalf of everybody, all the very best for the season, and we'll definitely catch up with you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Keith. Pleasure as always.